Welcome to the newest innovation, the very first and very experimental video version of Propwash. In this and future videos you'll see and hear the latest news, views and updates on what's happening, not happening or about to happen at the club. But before that, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to make sure you'll never miss another episode. As everyone is aware, we're currently living through the most difficult period the country's experienced since the Second World War. COVID-19 has run amok through the world with devastating consequences, including, of course, the curtailment of all flying activities at our Simister fields. Of course, it's not the first time we've had to close the fields. I remember well the foot and mouth epidemic, which had much the same effect, and the club survived that, and I know will survive and blossom once we're all back in the air. Since the lockdown, we have seen via our fantastic CCTV a couple of chaps come down to the field totally disregarding the shutdown. We don't believe that they were members of our club, as I'm sure none of our members would be so irresponsible as to break the rules in such a silly way. It's far too early to be reopening the fields, but we're of course monitoring the whole situation and will be following government guidelines so that when the time comes to lift the present restrictions, we'll be prepared. Now, although the gate has been sealed to members, we've still managed to ensure that the patch has been cut regularly, and before the lockdown this very merry band of workers knuckled down to a bit of manual labour. Because we've also been beavering away behind the scenes to try and sort out the lane in the car park. You might be surprised how much hardcore is needed to fill the potholes. About 9 tonnes actually. Now, the farmer provided 3 tonnes, and Steve Cardew, who works for Travis Perkins, arranged for us to take delivery of the other 6 tonnes, and using the biggest RC toy in the world, dropped the bags of rubble in exactly the right place, and we just spread it about. But many hands make light work, and the village people here did a great job in no time at all. So when we do return to the field, you'll find a reasonably smooth ride down to the car park. Thanks, of course, go to Steve, Mike, Bill, Guy and the 2 Ians for giving up an hour or so to make life an awful lot easier for the rest of us. Of course, while we're in lockdown, what better excuse could you have for locking yourself away in your man cave and using the time to get down to a bit of building maintenance? Now, if we're not flying, then the first thing Lecky pilots should be considering is ensuring their flight packs are discharged to a storage voltage. Reducing the cells to 3.8 volts per cell is considered appropriate, and particularly if the cells are not being used for more than 10 to 14 days. Most multi-chargers nowadays have a facility to do this, but they are so slow, taking literally hours to reach the required voltage. Now, if you're serious about looking after your cells, then the quickest and easiest way is to splash out on a dedicated discharger. Of those on the market, we are reliably informed by our member Ian Baxter that the ISDT FD200 is one of the best and can discharge a 2200 3S pack in around 10 to 15 minutes. They are not the cheapest, but it's well worth laying out the money if you want to save your cells. Now, if you're the sensible type who likes to keep an eye on your pack as they discharge, then the time saved is amazing, giving you much more time to spend with your loved ones, or even your wives or partners. That said, I'm delighted to see that you have indeed been very busy little bees, and here you can see a few examples of the Balsa Basher's art. First up, a most ambitious project by Ian O'Loughlin, who recently is recreating the Bolton Paul Defiant. Nowhere near as well known as the Spitfire or the Hurricane, but 12 of these fighters took out 39 German fighters on their very first sortie. They achieved this because the Luftwaffe mistook them for Hurricanes and failed to note the backward-facing twin 30mm cannons. What a mistake to make! Of course, once the Germans realised their error, they were more careful, and as the Defiant was somewhat slower than the Hurricane and the Spitfire, it didn't see much action after that. Ian is building this from scratch, and this is a truly scratch build. He has spent many hours tracing and cutting the ribs and formers and has now begun putting them together. And the wings are so far looking pretty good, with the fuselage also taking shape. It's going to be tricky sorting out those rather complicated canopies, but the skilled 3D printer like Ian can find a way. Now next up is Mike Gore's very first built up model. It's a Wasp E2K electric pylon racer, kitted out by Cloud Models, and it comes in at around £60. It's a slab-sider fuselage with veneered foam wings, which makes for a quick build for an experienced builder, but for a first-time builder it's proving to be a steep learning curve. Seemingly easy things like fitting ailerons and linkages, and of course the covering for the first time could be quite a challenge. Of course, Mike has the help of our WhatsApp group with an army of members willing to offer good advice, and I'm sure he'll be ready to go in the not too distant future. Incidentally, this model is the official airframe of the Miniature Pylon Racing Association of Great Britain, and it's their electric racing class when fitted with the permitted powertrain and prop. It should prove to be a very nippy model. Arch builder Peter Moore, fresh from his 3-year project of his FK-23 Bantam biplane, is taking a different route with an original 1980s Great Plane Extra. Peter bought this part-built kit with a view to spending as little as possible on getting it into the air and up and running. When he bought it off the BMFA classified website for £60, the wings were built, but the rest needed construction. Originally it was an IC model, but now we'll have an AXI 2826/12 motor to power the model, and the colour scheme will be whatever Peter has in his scrapbox of solar film. Here's yet another model waiting in the wings for when the extra is finished, but more news of that in the next episode. Now, not every model being built is a radio controlled model. John Payne is working on an 18-inch span Cessna 140 rubber-powered free flight model by Vintage Model Company, which comes in at about £25. It's a stick and tissue construction with the added bonus of some laser-cut parts. It's real aero modelling. Now, if you want to learn how to trim a plane, then try a free flight model. It requires patience and sensitivity, but it's great practice for spotting any flaws in your RC models and will help you to determine how to make flight corrections to enable a perfect flight. Of course, there are loads of other models out there ready to maiden once we get back down to the field, and if we're not back by the time the next episode is ready, I'll show you what's been cooking. Talking of cooking, once we do get back, then rest assured on the first good weekend we'll drag the old Barbie out and have a fly-in to celebrate. So for the time being, crack on with the building. Remember, if you would like to see more Propwash videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below, and if you have any comments or suggestions, polite ones only, pop them down below. Till next time, stay safe, cheerio.